Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and they are slowly taking them away from you. Have you ever decided to go onto one of your online video game ecosystems, whether it's Nintendo Online, Xbox Game Pass, or the PlayStation Network, to name a few, and you've gone on there looking for a game that maybe you played about 8 to 9 years ago? Maybe it was a riveting run and gun action game. Maybe it was a very intriguing RPG, and you go onto this online platform and you say, I'm gonna go ahead and download this game because I really want to play it again. And when you get to the online store, you realize that the game is no longer there. And then you're perplexed because you know that the last time that you were on the online store, you saw that game available. Not only did you see it available, you also probably saw it on sale. Well, this is something that has happened and is happening to many gamers all across the globe when it comes to some of these more retro titles that they're looking for, that maybe they played a long time ago. They know that the game was available online, but then when they go looking for them, they're no longer there. And this is something that we all know as delisting. The delisting of games isn't anything new. However, it's somewhat of a silent destroyer of your opportunity to play games that you do not have in a physical format, or you don't have saved to some type of hard drive, or maybe downloaded to one of your consoles. And delisting is a big part of the reason, and it always has been a big factor in the price of physical games jumping. I mean, skyrocketing. We've seen this happen with the 3DS. We saw this happen with the Xbox 360 not that long ago. We've seen it happen with certain PlayStation games, and the list goes on. Now, there are ways to see what games are going to be delisted. There's different forums and websites that you can check to see what games are going to be delisted. But I did want to talk about one game in particular, which is the Sega Classics Collection. Now, the reason why this is so pertinent is because I did a video yesterday talking about how Sega plans on doing some very exciting things with some of their original IPs. Some of these amazing stories that we've come to know and love, such as Streets of Rage and Shinobi, and even the Dreamcast series like Crazy Taxi and Jet Grind Radio. A lot of these franchises and a lot of these IPs are going to be transitioned over into either movies or TV series, or animated series. It'll be a number of things that we're going to be seeing that Sega's working on, and they've got a head of their transmedia who's working to make a lot of those older Sega IPs relevant again. And I mentioned yesterday that this is very exciting. It's very exciting for older fans of the Sega lineup. Whether you're a fan of the Sonic games, like I said, Streets of Rage, Shinobi, the list goes on. If you're fans of those games, this is a very exciting time to see these characters and these stories that we grew up on being moved into more modern, series and different things like that. However, we've also got an announcement from Sega that I believe after December 6th, the Sega Classics Collection will no longer be available for download, and I think the only place that you'll be able to access it is on Nintendo's online subscription service, where I believe, I don't know how many of you have this, but if you have Nintendo's online subscription service, they've got a catalog for like the Super Nintendo, the NES, and they've also got the Sega Genesis, and they've got the N64 as well. And I do think Nintendo did do a cool thing by releasing these wireless controllers that pretty much are identical to the original controllers. So for the Sega Online, you can get the original 3-button Sega controller. For the N64, you could get the wireless N64 controller. For the Super Nintendo, same thing with the NES. I think I'm not sure if the NES or the Super NES was first, but I think they did a cool thing with that. The only downside to that is, what good is having the controller if the catalog that's there is lackluster? And but that's another video for another day. Right now we're talking about Sega and the fact that the only place you'll be able to access a lot of these games is going to be through Nintendo's online subscription. Now, for a lot of people, most people will not really care. I think this is something that's going to fly over a lot of people's heads because, you know, there's so many games that people are looking forward to. There's so many more modern games that people are playing these days. You've got the Call of Duties games that have come out, the new Madden games, the new 2K games, and then, you know, everything in between. But this is really important, right? This is important from a retro standpoint because our retro games and the retro catalogs that we love are slowly being taken away. And it seems like the only games that will wind up being left for us to access in some type of online form will be only the games that the publishers want us to play. And it's pretty evident right now what they want us to play. It's clear they want us to play Mario games. It's clear they want us to play Luigi games. A lot of the flagship Nintendo games, those games are not going anywhere. And then same thing with a lot of the other AAA flagship games. Those are the games that publishers want you to play. And they're going to make those available for you till Kingdom Come. But there's also going to be that segment of gamers who are going to go on to these stores looking for the games that maybe they grew up playing, some of the more niche titles that probably weren't as heavily popularized by the publishers. And this can create a problem when you start to think about the fact that Sega is trying to revive some of these characters and storylines, but then at the same time, they're simultaneously taking away your ability to access the games that you know, from which these stories originated. And that's a very perplexing and confusing thing to me, especially when, you know, we've got so many amazing things on the horizon. So as I said before, delisting is not anything new. We've seen games get delisted all the time, and the same thing happens over and over and over again. The biggest impact that it has is on the physical retro gaming market, as well as emulation. So when these games get taken away, it's a chain reaction. What happens is the game gets pulled off from a place where, you know, everyone was able to easily access it legally. And then what happens is those who do not have the hardware, they just go and emulate it. And folks are going to continue to do that, right? And we understand, yes, we understand that it's illegal. We understand that you should not be using software without, you know, authorization. We get it, but it's like these publishers are forcing people into this position because, you know, no one's going to spend that much money. No one's going to go and spend $60 on a copy of Shinobi 3. No one's going to spend $65 on a copy of Streets of Rage 1 or Streets of Rage 3 or whatever the case may be. No one's paying those prices. And so if they have to choose between spending a lot of money and going and emulating, unless they're a diehard collector or unless there's someone who's been invested in this hobby and invested in retro gaming for quite some time, most people are going to look for the path of least resistance, which winds up being emulation. Or they're just going to forget about it altogether, because we can say and sing about emulation all the time, but not everyone has the technical patience or the technical wherewithal to download ROMs and emulators and zip files and do all that. Emulation is not always as easy as it sounds. And if you're someone who's 50, you're not one to deal with files and emulation and, you know, unzipping this file and unzipping that file. You want the gameplay experience to be as easy as it was back in 1992, where all you had to do was plug it in, plug up the cords, and hit on, and the game was on and you were ready to play. So it's a very challenging notion. It's a very weird thing to see, but this is what's happening, and the delisting is continuing, and I don't think it's gonna become a real thing until we start to see certain games get delisted, and that's when arms are gonna start getting thrown in the air, because people are gonna get frustrated at the fact that they can't play certain games. But let me know what you think about this down in the comments. What are your thoughts on the delisting of the Sega Classics collection? How do you feel about not being able to access some of those classic Sega Genesis games on most platforms? And let me know what you think how this is going to impact even the value of Sega Genesis games. What impact is this going to have on physical cartridges for Sega? Do you think it's going to make a difference? I'm interested to know your thoughts. It's the Y2K Collector. Before I go, I do want to say thank you to everyone who's been subscribing to the second channel. No video yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on dropping the next video, but I do have a second channel which talks about everything that's not video games. So It's going to be a channel dedicated to just men trying to better themselves, focusing on values, finances, hobbies, different things like that. We'll talk about all sorts of different stuff there on that channel. I think it'll be a great place for good conversation and just breaking a virtual bread, so to speak. And we'll talk about topics like something that's happened today with the Fed. The Fed just cut rates just now. I don't know how many of you have been keep up with that, but that has major implications, right, on what on finances and financing, everything relating to financing. So the Fed did just cut interest rates, and those are some of the topics that we'll probably brush against on that secondary channel. But go ahead and check it out. It's Real Life Dad. Go check me out over there. Subscribe. Turn on the notifications so that when I do drop that first video, you are able to check that out. And that does it for me. It's the Y2K Collector. Hopefully you're having a great Thursday, and I will catch you in the next video. Take it easy.